What's happening, fam? L.A.R. movement still moving. Book is entitled Lessons from a Non-Custodial Father at Amazon, Kindle, and CreateSpace. A link will be in the description box below as usual. This video is entitled The White Jim Crow, or, Jim Crow for whites, right? So I watched a few YouTube videos and got inspired to make a couple of videos, a couple more. So I want to talk about the video I was watching was why there are less white players in the NBA, and there's a certain stigma with white guys, white American guys, and I'm gonna use this with athletics and politics and everything else, and try to have a theory, white Jim Crow theory. That's what I'm gonna call this, about what's going on. Why there's such a thing to make America great again, right? And not replace us. So let's get into it. I remember in the history books of all the things that happened after slavery, Reconstruction was positive, but Jim Crow more specifically, because in Jim Crow there was this fake ideology that came from slavery and that Reconstruction just destroyed. Well, black people are inferior. We was just doing too much. So then Jim Crow was instituted. So, but during Jim Crow, black men had to prove those stereotypes wrong. So the Tuskegee Airmen is part of Jim Crow. You know what I'm saying? Black guys aren't prepared for war, blah, blah, blah. They can't be really good soldiers. And then the Tuskegee Airmen just blew the doors off of that. The soldiers themselves, when they talk about the pointing that flag, it's not Iwo Jima, I don't think. But when you see that statue of the soldiers planting the flag, like it's like 3 or 4 guys like this, and they pushing up the flag, those are black soldiers originally. They took them out the picture. There was a time where, I think in the 80s, black schools and black guys were out testing people as far as the military was concerned, just in the high school when it was recruiting. So that was a problem. This is why I'm bringing up Jim Crow for a reason. And same thing when it comes to sports and athletics. The quarterback position. Baseball was the same thing. Baseball, these black men aren't as talented, and then the Negro League started beating the brakes off of the quote unquote the MLB, and then we needed integration, and then black guys really started taking over baseball and had until they started freezing out the little leagues of black talent. That's why you don't see as many black people in baseball, right? So, same premise. Same premise really was the issue with Barack Obama, per se, because the country was so messed up, people have lost faith in white guys. So when you mess stuff up in America, in my community, we already know if you mess something up so bad, no matter how much we've demonized, marginalized, or made the villain of the story, if you mess it up real bad, the country, we got to get a black guy to fix it, the black messiah thing. Now, here's the issue, because I had to lay the groundwork for this, right? What I believe is now life and karma has swung that pendulum towards white guys, where white guys aren't looked at as successful. They're not looked at as men or as manly men. They're marginalized. They're made fun of. They're made to look aloof and stupid. And and they made to they're promoted as, soft, entitled, um, silver spoon fed guys. And even though America has a white male power structure, as far as that freezes everybody else out, it's not looked at as with any type of respect. It's not looked at with any type of reverence. Like the jig is up, the veil is off, and people looking at these guys like, everybody, if they're non-white males, look at the white men as the good old boys club, right? So it doesn't necessarily mean that they're the best and the brightest. They're just keeping it in house. And when it comes to really having to be about the best and the brightest, everybody else has been chipping away at that idea that white men are the best or the brightest. Because the one thing about America is it was never really built on. It wasn't built by the hands of white men. It wasn't built by the ingenuity of white guys. It wasn't built by you could say completely force of white guys, because white men in this country never actually did anything by themselves. Like either somebody did it for them and they took credit for it, or somebody did it with them and they took credit for it. So for years, guys were celebrated, but now the party's over. So now people are looking at white guys like, you're not the king of the hill. You're sitting on a throne, but you slipping. And in order to hold your position, you're gonna have to prove you deserve to be there. And now, like I said, these guys aren't looked at with respect or reverence. So now it's like, see, it's another one failing. It's another one failing. And unfortunately, it started with the presidencies, because, like I said this a long time ago, one of the biggest issues was with having Barack Obama as president, just in sight, as the fact that somebody could do that. But more so, if he's successful, because remember they want to make him a one-term president and failure. If he's successful, then what? And he's sandwiched in between George Bush and Donald Trump. So if he's the stopgap, then you're gonna look at the 40 other presidents, and you're gonna look at the success to failure rate. And then when people start looking at the success to failure rate politically, like, what did these guys really do? What does this all-white system really do? And I think part of feminism, which is, from the women's suffrage movement, which is white women's riff with white men, which people like me don't understand, because they benefited from everything white men did. So I don't get it, but that's not my problem. That's not my business, rather. So, but there's always been this thing where, I can do it. And all of these stoic images in media and this propaganda, nobody's believing in it anymore. People look at white men as just aloof. And because of that, you seeing white men in less and less. Like, I was watching the highlights from the Georgia-Alabama game. And this is why I brought up sports as a reference. Because Jerry West and Mike Dunleavy were talking about, people they were drafting, and they were drafting to win. And these schools are recruiting kids to win. And the more you see this, just in the sports realm and even other forms of entertainment, you're drafting people to win, and these white guys aren't winning. You know, when they say, okay, who's the better guy? Who's going to be better? Who's going to outwork? And you have these guys who, you know, white men are starting to deal with their own version of Jim Crow, in my opinion, because there's going to come a point where the white quarterback is going to have to play receiver or tight end because they just don't think he's cut for the job. Just like a lot of these black players that you think who are in these, say in the NFL, you know them as the position that they are, but they weren't that position in high school, and that's not what they got recruited for. They got changed in college. And when it comes to that quarterback position, you're going to see that a lot. Same thing, like I said, the baseball reference, you know, people was going to, now people go to the Dominican and Caribbean, Central, South America, and they're like, oh, okay, you know, and you see all of these, even entertainment with music. You know, I know I just switched up real quick, but even entertainment with music, we talk about a lot of cultural appropriation. We're not looking at guys who innovate or whatever. Like even right now with the Black Panther coming out, and people, it's not just the money part about it, is that people could look at the Black Panther and say, in Marvel, he's probably one of the smartest, best equipped superheroes that there is. You know, like just get past the fact that he's black and he's, you know, he's African, right? It's just the fact that he has an integral role in defeating some of the biggest, baddest characters in the Marvel universe, right? So that's entertainment. But even when you look at entertainment, when people look at the top 10, you know, you're going to see black males up there as box office. You're going to see Will Smith up there. You're going to see Samuel L. Jackson up there. Not so much, and I'm talking all the time. You may see Denzel, but I would say more so like Eddie Murphy, or, you know, The Rock. The Rock is probably slowly creeping because he's older. But when you think about things in life, and when you think about excellence, you know, business and politics is where we've lacked the most. And a lot of times, I remember watching that old video of a guy who used to be like the CEO of American Express, and he'd say, you know, business is different. In sports, we all know the rules. So if you get caught cheating, everybody who's participating and who's watching knows the rules. But in business, the rules keep changing. And this country's financial situation stems from incompetence of white men. So the country doesn't even believe white men can fix it. And with all this outsourcing, you know, outsourcing to India, outsourcing work, but also importing, I forgot that doggone visa again, where they import the smartest people from everywhere else, like India, China, Japan, you know, Africa, and they get immigrants to come into this country, the UK, to help the labor. But a lot of these people go back to their homes now because they're helping their own infrastructure in their own homes. And now that's competing with the U.S. And, you know, the talented 10th theory, you're not seeing a white talented 10th. What you're seeing is people benefiting off of generational wealth, and they're trying to buy a certain amount of people's space. And it creates, to me, a Jim Crow effect, because the idea of having to prove who you are, white men don't have a track record of proving excellence when dealing with adversity. You know, it's got to be like a perfect situation, and then these guys will jump in. And I think that's creating like a white version of Jim Crow. And it seems like these guys are crumbling under the pressure. And, you know, for people like myself who are black or who are non-white, but I'm black, I ain't got to worry about them other people. I'm just sitting back watching in this theory of mine, and I'm thinking like, I mean, we've already been through this. I mean, I don't. You. This is something you created. You made this bed. You didn't think you would have to lay in it. Now you got to lay in it. And I don't really necessarily care if you can't hack it, because then don't get it twisted. There's some guys, some white guys I know who I think are excellent human beings, excellent men, right? But even those guys look at other guys like, you gotta step it up, bro. Like, it ain't my fault that you need to work harder. You need to stop bitching. Like, that kind of thing. And I think it's like causing a mental crack. And everything else is already cracking, so it's like a big, huge breakdown that looks like it's on the cusp. That's why I was talking about, the opioids and the automation and all the other stuff. And changing all the rules, because the Jim Crow that's happening into them, or this like pseudo Jim Crow or whatever, is really messing with them, in my opinion. It's just a theory. I'm out.